Hey, it's Kenny, and this summer of hitchhiking was awesome. This year altogether in 2020, I've been to 30-something states tripping around. We're gonna roll back to the summer here where I went to a bunch of the northern states. Chaotic at some points, tell you a good story here. A lot of great scenery, seeing a lot of friends, making some new friends. So let's rewind. You might have seen my last few videos. A couple were in Wyoming and then Montana to kind of start the summer off. So let's go back to Montana and keep this adventure going. Hey, I'm in Kalispell, Montana. Been hitchhiking through Montana. If you saw the last video, you saw quite a bit of that beauty. And I decided to hitch kind of north. Ended up getting a ride from a guy who was going into Glacier National Park. He's just kind of on a road trip figuring out what's next in his life. And we ended up spending the whole day together just jumping into blue pools. Glacier Park is incredible. The stuff we saw in there, the views, the heights, everything. Awesome. We ended up camping, and then he dropped me off in Whitefish today, which is kind of special to me because when I first started traveling in 2007, I actually hung out with my family a little bit in Wyoming, and then they dropped me off in Whitefish, Montana. So that's where officially I was on my own, and my mom actually took a picture as I was walking away after I said goodbye. And that photo is just the first moment of me kind of being on my own. So just for kicks, I went and kind of recreated that moment.
You look at me funny when I tell you I don't need no money to get the things I want. You think I'm crazier when I tell you that it wouldn't really matter if everything else faded away. 'Cause I still have my dreams, that's good enough for me. I see what I want, and I like what I see.
Kind of funny, I found the same spot near the train depot. And yeah, parted ways with that dude and hitchhiked down here to Kalispell. So I'm actually right now scoping out this pretty big park as a potential place to stealth camp tonight. I don't know if I'm gonna stay in town tonight or not. I'm gonna go, this looks like an awesome spot. I mean, there's plenty of options to camp here. So yeah, I might go grab a beer at one of the breweries here, and then who knows. I'll either stay here or I'll meet somebody or I'll hitchhike onward, but let's go. Let's see what happens. Just woke up in the strangest place. Some yard. Was out drinking with some buddies, new buddies. I don't know where I'm at now. I don't know where I'm at, but I'm walking out of here. Let's see. So I have some theories, but even those are not very good. So basically, yeah, yesterday I went to a brewery, and then a second brewery. And while I was at the second one, I looked over these two girls and I was like, hey, do you know about this Bias brewery?
and they'd just gotten here. They just road trip from Minnesota. One of them's living here. The other one was like her partner in crime, just bringing her here for the trip. And they're like, we're going there next. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll see you there. And these other two guys chimed in. They're like, Minnesota, blah, blah, blah. And basically, I went to the next brewery. Next thing I know, I'm hanging out with the two guys and the two girls.
Okay, so let me explain this night. So yeah, met these two guys, two girls, went to sushi. They had a company card, so they invited the girls and I to come with them, these guys, and we drank a bunch of sake, ate some sushi. They invited me to come work with them, some menial construction job, tying flags the next day, so I'm like, yeah, I'm down for that. So they offered to let me crash at their place, their apartment. We get back there, they got friends, we're partying. They'd ordered over way too much sake at the sushi spot, so we had that. And mostly I was drinking it like beer. I'm not used to drinking sake, I'm used to drinking beer, so I got blackout drunk, totally blacked out. Can't remember what happened. Last thing I remember was being on the balcony having a good old time. Next memory is the next morning, and I'm waking up in a random yard, not their apartment. No idea where I'm at. I'm within a fenced yard. So I decide just to get up and kind of go. I'm like, did we party here last night? I don't know. It's hard to say. So I get up and moving, recorded that little video of waking up you just saw. And at that moment I realized I was missing a bag of electronics, so I go walk back to the yard. I'm looking around, can't find it. The back door, screen door is open, the screen is shut, but I'm knocking on the door. I'm like, maybe I party with these people and they told me to stay in the backyard. Some of the people I met last night, I'm not sure. Hello? Nothing. So I look in and see in the counter there's some post-it notes. So open the screen door, go inside, kind of look around hoping to see my stuff in there. Write a quick note, write the same note twice actually, because I'm gonna go put the same note in the apartment complex. I had to say, hey, thanks for everything. If you see my bag of gray electronics, I think I left it here. Thanks, Kenny, phone number. Leave one note, take the other, walking with me. And I'm in a big subdivision of houses. I look on Google Maps, see where I'm at. I'm like, I gotta walk out of here, down the main highway, and then down like half a mile to that apartment. On the way, get a phone call, Montana number, pick it up. It's this woman. She's like, are you Kenny? Were you in my house last night? I'm like, oh crap, I could instantly tell, like, now I'm like, yeah, do you remember me? We were like partying last night. She's like, how did you get into my house? I'm like, crap, sleeping in a random yard or something. So I'm like, oh, I went to a bunch of houses last night with these friends, and she's like, I think I should call the police. I'm like, no, it's total misunderstanding. Like, I just thought you were the house I was at. A lot of them looked the same. She'd hung up on me. So I'm like, okay. So I kept walking. I get to the apartment, knock on the door. They're obviously gone, probably at the construction job that I should have been at. Not sure what happened the night before. Leave the post-it note on their door. Notice there's a big construction site and some forest between. If you don't take the road, it's like a shortcut to the old woman's house. So I'm looking around, like maybe I walked through here the night before, trying to find the bag. Phone rings again, anonymous. I pick it up. It's the deputy of Kalispell. It's the cops. They want to meet up with me. If you want to hear the story in even more detail, you can listen to my podcast, the Freestyle Travel Show. It's on iTunes and everywhere podcasts are. Anyways, I go and meet up with the cops and kind of explain like, oh, I was with these guys, we were drinking, we went to a bunch of houses, I couldn't remember which one it was, I thought it was this one, left the note, total accident, they went with it, it was fine. I didn't mention I'd like slept in her yard, probably a red flag. And they let me go, thankfully, but I spent the next 2 days like going back and trying to find the bag. I actually got knocked on the apartment again a day or two later. There was one of the guys I'd party with, not the original two, but some other dude. And he's like, haven't found your bag here. I'm like, do you know what happened the other night? Because the last thing I remember is drinking sake in the balcony. And he's like, yeah, late night, you guys kept on like bantering back and forth, and it turned into like sort of a disagreement of some kind. He didn't know what it was, but he seemed to think it was just something stupid and drunk. I'm sure it was. But I guess they asked me to leave. That's a bummer. That hardly ever happens. So who knows what kind of drunken, playful stuff turned into me getting booted. But at least I know kind of what happened. So I'm like, all right, so I must have drunkenly walking through this field and trees and wound up at her house, which still makes no sense, because why would I camp in her yard? as opposed to these trees. But anyway, so I keep looking, I can't find the stuff. Eventually I give up and I start reordering some stuff on Amazon and decide, oh, eventually I'm going to be in Spokane, I'll get it shipped there. There's like Amazon lockers and general delivery. So that's my next destination. Meanwhile, I get a message from a friend, or a guy who picked me up hitchhiking, now a friend, years ago in Nebraska, and he saw an Instagram post I had in Whitefish, and he's there on vacation with his wife. He's like, come party for a night, have some beers, chill. So I head up there, we go kayaking, have some beers, I camp on a couch in their hotel room. It's cool catching up with them, and I decided onwards to Spokane, so I started hitching towards Idaho at that point. I'm on Highway 2, exiting Montana into Idaho, bit by bit. It's been a weird few days, it's been a fun few days. That's all I got for you, I don't know. Fun now, always fun. Hit up a couple towns in Idaho on the way to Spokane, and I ended up spending about a week or so in Spokane just waiting for these various packages to arrive. And I did some camping around there, and a friend was road tripping with her mom to see her aunt in Coeur d'Alene, so I caught up with her and all them for a few days there. Another friend was road tripping kind of nearby, so I went and hitched down and had some beers with him, and eventually got all my packages and junk and started hitching south. This girl picked me up and invited me to stay with her and her husband on their kind of new property. And that was cool. Her husband was a blacksmith, so he showed me a few things. That was really cool. Gave me a ride the next day to the road, but first went to a dock. He was doing some fishing. Just kind of hung out in like a beautiful spot. And then a truck driver gave me a ride pretty much all the way to McCall, Idaho, which is a cool town that people told me about. Ended up getting drunk at a hockey rink, of all places. At a brewery I went to, a hostess told me that it was like the cheapest beers in town. Sure enough, there's a little bar and a hockey rink. Super cool people. They told me about a dive bar across the street, late night. Played some shuffleboard. Someone told me about some acres of woods I could camp in. That was great. And the next morning, I'm walking around the beach. Phone rings, don't answer it, unknown number. Voicemail from the deputy of Kalispell. We're now talking weeks later. He found my bag. Not him, but they have my bag. A bag of electronics. It's crazy. So I guess some landscape guy was walking around the woman's house, found the bag somewhere near her house. I don't know where. I wish I knew, because I looked everywhere. Her house was closest, brought it to her. She remembered the note that freaked the hell out of her, that some random dude was in her house leaving notes. Sorry, miss. She called the cops. They got it, and they're like, where do you want us to mail it? So I had to replace some of the stuff. Some of the stuff was irreplaceable, and I got it all back now. Crazy. Totally unexpected. So feeling happy. I hitchhiked on down to Boise, Nampa kind of area. I've got some friends there. I stayed with a friend. He's a kind of a gem hunter, looking for rocks and stuff. We went out and like kind of looked for some crystals and different stuff, and had a good time. And then in Boise itself, there's this girl who picked me up hitchhiking a few years ago. So I spent a couple nights having fun with her, meeting some more of her friends, and then it was time to hitchhike to Salt Lake City. Or that's what I wanted to do. So took a couple days. I spent the night in Great Falls, kind of a beautiful spot. A lot of people base jump there. And yeah, got a ride from a guy who owns a Mexican restaurant just north of Salt Lake City. So he gave me a ride, got me a big free meal at the restaurant, and put me on a train like 45 minutes down into Salt Lake Central. Caught up with some friends there for several days. Went climbing, went hiking, just generally caught up, had a real good time there. I mean, Salt Lake's beautiful if you know where to go. And then hitchhiked to Denver. Caught up with some friends there, obviously some good breweries, had a good time, and they gave me a ride about an hour north of there. Just woke up in Fort Collins, found a pretty good place to camp right here by the river, out of the way. After a really good run in Denver with some friends. And yeah, I was kind of thinking of hitchhiking up to the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Got some friends up there, and just got some places I haven't seen before. So
Whew, I needed that sleep. See what happens today.
So a truck driver gave me a ride clear to Lincoln, Nebraska from Fort Collins. And I'd originally been thinking of going up through the Dakotas, but the forecast called for some random cold snap. It was gonna be below freezing everywhere, raining and snowing in parts. So I'm like, not for me. And my friend, the couple who I'd just seen in Whitefish, that's where they're from, Lincoln, Nebraska. So I went and saw them again. Hung out there for a few days for the storm to pass. And my destination was Minneapolis to go see a friend. And on the way, a guy in Iowa picked me up, invited me to come in and have lunch at his place on a farm, rural Iowa. And then while I was having lunch, he talked me into staying for a couple days. He's like, if you stay for a couple days, just want to pick your brain and chat and hang out, and then I'll give you a ride to Minneapolis. I'm like, all the way to Minneapolis? All right. And he was real cool, so I was happy to hang out for a couple days, and yeah, just kind of drinking, talking philosophy, travel, having a good time. And sure enough, him and his wife drove me up 5 hours to Minneapolis. So they had a friend there, kind of made the trip worth it, but it was pretty generous and awesome. Spent some time in Minneapolis, caught up with a friend, helped him paint his house over there. And my next destination was Madison, Wisconsin. But before that, there was a Toppling Goliath brewery in Iowa that I wanted to go to.
Oh, I'm in Iowa. Decorah, Iowa. Got some waterfalls and stuff. Got here yesterday specifically to go to Toppling Goliath, like an epic brewery. And it was indeed epic. It was very good. And then I went into town to find a dive bar to watch the basketball game. Nuggets beat the Clippers. That's always funny. And yeah, someone told me about this waterfall. So checking it out. Then hitchhiked to Madison. It's already a little late in the day. Not in a hurry. I'm having a blast.
Madison was cool. It's a cool town in Wisconsin. Ate some cheese curds, had some beers, and I caught up with a friend I hadn't seen in years. It's always good to do that. Next destination was Kansas City, and I got about halfway there to Des Moines, and my friend came up and gave me a ride the rest of the way down to Kansas City. Those of you who listen to my podcast might know the name Liz Stewart, Freestyle Travel Show podcast. She's been on the show a couple times. And she just moved to Kansas City with her boyfriend and another roommate. So they're starting some businesses, so I was just catching up with them. Hanging out, enjoying their company, helping where I could, and eventually I figured start heading south. So hitchhiked on down through Fayetteville, Arkansas, which is kind of a cool little college town I've always wanted to check out. Camped by some waterfall in the Ozarks, and then I got moving on down towards Mississippi.
Grand Canyon of Mississippi, as it were. That's what they call this place. That's not bad. I was ready to be unimpressed, to be honest, but it's pretty cool. It's not gigantic, but we are in Mississippi, so you take what you can get. Whew, did a lot of walking today. Thought this road was going to be busier. Walked a good 3-4 hours. Luckily, this dude picked me up. He used to work out here, and he's like, there was nothing until this. And gave me a couple beers, kind of made fun of me for walking, and yeah, I don't know where I'm going next. I think I'm gonna see my friends in Biloxi here. Might try to hit the brewery in Hattiesburg. I don't know, this is cool after a long walk, seeing this, so see what's next.
Hitched on to Hattiesburg and went to Southern Prohibition Brewery, one of the better breweries in Mississippi, for whatever that's worth. It's actually pretty decent. Drank some beers there that night. Another brewery, small brewery called Porter, or The Porter, nearby. Had some beers there. Found a place to camp off the side of the road. And decided to hitchhike to Biloxi the next day. Got a ride from a girl. She picked me up in a minivan with like 5 kids in it. And she said she'd drive me like a little of the ways. And she's like, I'll drive you all the way to Biloxi, but let me drop the kids off first. So went to a playground for them to run around and dropped them off at a friend's. And before going to Biloxi, she's like, I work at a Subway, so let me get you something to eat before we go. I'm like, oh, awesome. So we go to the Subway, and I go and I order the sandwich, and I come back and she's talking to like someone she works with, and then she's kind of crying. We get back to the car, and I'm like, what's up? So apparently the day before, or 2 days ago, she had been working and got a phone call that her kids were like stuck on the side of the road. I don't know if there was someone else, the car broke down. So she went to pick up her kids, get them off the side of the road, and I guess because of that, which she just found out now, they fired her, which is kind of garbage in my opinion. Like, kids are on the side of the road, and it wasn't like she was alone in the Subway and like left it abandoned. So she was a little distraught, but she ended up taking me halfway to Biloxi, and she had to get back and find a manager and deal with that nonsense. But I managed to hitch some rides into Biloxi easy. There's a bunch of cool cars passing me. It's cruising the coast or whatever down here in Biloxi. So a bunch of fancy cars are in here. So here I am, Biloxi. I'll kind of see how things go. Summer's over. It's October. It's going to start getting cold in those northern states. So I'm glad I saw as much as I could. I have no idea what's next, how long I'll be in Biloxi, where I'm going to next. I'm sure there'll be some Florida, some Arizona, some North Carolina, some Mexico. I don't know. It's part of the fun. Just rambling, seeing what happens. So it's all good. But I will keep you guys posted. Always check out the Instagram, podcast, Twitter, Facebook, whatever you want, Hobo Lifestyle. It's all good times. So have a good one, y'all. Hope your summer is awesome too. I will see you down the road.